Hey folks, this is Jeff Buhet with a special meeting of the St. Mary's Area School District, and with us we have a couple guests today. But first we'd like to tell you what we're talking about, the difficulties and the funding and the economic end of running a school district, the kind of the pros and cons and some of the things that are going to affect you here in the near future. And I've got some guests here. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Matthew Splain, the superintendent of the Outer School District in McKean County.
And I'm Brian Toth, superintendent of the St. Mary's Area School District.
What a lot of folks don't realize is, the day-to-day operations of running a district. Of course, you have the education value of dealing with the students, but unfortunately it is also very much a business. And when it comes to this business, there's a lot of challenges, am I correct?
Daily. This time of year we're looking at the budget planning for next year. We're starting out with a deficit of about $400,000. That's just with mandated expenses, and that assumes that we're looking at the same amount of revenue we have this year. So we're hopeful to have at least that.
Now, is that deficit, is that on the state level, or are you talking, where are we looking there?
Well, that's in our expenses that we know about for next year right now, versus what we can hopefully plan for in revenue, which we're a small rural school district, so we don't really have a lot of say in what our revenue is going to be because we are so small and poor.
And likewise, Jeff, there are always deficits in every district. And, we expect a deficit too. It's just fortunate that St. Mary's, being a little bigger than our friends at Otto Eldred, we have some reserves to pull from to help with that deficit. And I'd like you to remember this. If there's an increase in public education funding, and I hope there is one this year, that if that increase is $100 million, after we pay for mandated expenses, and again I say mandated expenses that are legislated that we have to pay for, there is only $8 million left to split among 500 school districts.
$8 million sounds like a lot until you divide it up into 500.
Not only that, Jeff, but it's not divided equally. Last year, there was a big push for the fair funding formula, which was begun to be implemented so that there was equity in funding for schools. However, with any moves that are made or reductions, that funding formula will not be able to be met or implemented.
How do you see the things going on nationally? There's obviously big changes nationally. Do you think those things are going to come through, and how's it going to affect the small school district?
Well, most districts in our area, they have federal funding from a number of sources. The two biggest would be the title funding and the special education funding. We have certain mandates we have to meet with special education in particular. We can't meet those mandates with the funding we receive right now, so we have to fill that from local sources. The rules for the federal money may change a little bit here coming forward, which may provide a little bit more flexibility, but with a push for vouchers and the such, we may have less money to work with to meet the needs of our kids.
And of course it's the students in the end are the ones that are going to suffer.
Exactly. We have a mandate to meet their needs, no matter what their needs are, and we try to do that as best we can, and I think we do a pretty good job of it. But we're seeing kids more now that have more and more severe needs. We may have a few less kids, but we have a far greater need for our kids that we have to meet.
And of course the other ones that are going to have to meet those needs is going to be the taxpayers.
You're exactly right, Jeff. And there's information out there that I'm not sure that every taxpayer knows or understands. One is this. Last year the governor proposed a personal income tax increase. Well, the increase he proposed on someone who earned $100,000 a year would only equal $5 per paycheck for that person. So when you equate it to that, making $100,000 a year and it's $5 a paycheck, with that salary and how much it is to pay, that's not that much money. There are some stats out there that will say public schools are failing, public schools are not doing well. However, that is what they call today, I believe, the fake news. The reality is this: graduation rates are higher than ever before, and this is with more stringent standards and a more rigorous curriculum that we are teaching our students today. That's also shown in a rise in our scores in regards to international tests, such as the National Assessment of Educational Progress. So there's the fake news that says schools are failing, but there's the good news that we need to really promote a lot more of, and that's why it's important to maintain and increase funding for our public schools.
Of course, the funding comes from a lot of different areas. I'll let you talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. We receive different buckets of funding. The biggest bucket is our basic ed funding, and also property tax. Right now there's a push in our state of Pennsylvania to do away with property taxes altogether. Our Constitution of Pennsylvania requires that we provide a fair and adequate education to our kids with the appropriate amount of funding to go with that. And if we just do away with the mainstay of what our funding is, where's the money going to come from? If the legislature is successful in doing away with property taxes, they've got to fill it from somewhere. It could be increased property tax or increased income tax, could be sales tax. It's going to hit everybody worse than what we pay right now.
And my goodness, I'm a property owner too, and wouldn't I love to not have to pay that tax bill every July? Certainly. However, again, there's that fake news. It's a myth. First of all, if it passes that there's an elimination of property taxes, number one is 80% of school districts will still be permitted to collect property taxes because we have bond debt to pay for. And bond debt comes from improving our educational facilities. A bond is similar to a home loan. I call that our mortgage that we pay each year. So 80% of Pennsylvanians are still going to have a property tax, while they're going to see a rise in their sales tax, and that will be taxing more items such as food, and also a rise in their personal income tax. Now, something to consider is this: when you look at a shift of property taxes to personal income and sales tax, what's happening is this: you will have $3 billion that local businesses will not have to pay in property tax any longer. $3 billion will be shifted then to your personal income tax and to your sales tax. Also, Matt mentioned equity of school funding. We need to provide an equitable education under our Pennsylvania Constitution. By shifting those funds that way, it will be anything but equitable. As usual, the big winners are around the Philadelphia and Pittsburgh areas.
The challenges have to be enormous for the smaller school district. You still have the same bills, but you certainly don't have that local income coming in as much as what we would in our own local town here.
Local control is key. You're correct, our property tax revenues aren't near what St. Mary's would be. But they will sustain us. Last year when we didn't have any funding from the state, they sustained us for a quarter of the year. If we don't have property tax revenue to sustain us, I don't know what we're going to do. When it comes down to this new law, the local control over any sort of revenue decisions would not be placed at the local level. One of the tenets of our successes in Pennsylvanian schools has been the local control with our school boards. At some point we need to trust the people at the local level to run the districts and run them effectively for the programs and the people that we're trying to support.
And this is the part I don't think a lot of people realize is you may be on a smaller scale, but you still have enormous expense that constitutionally you have to pay.
That's exactly right. We have building expenses, we have personnel expenses just like St. Mary's. We have the same requirements placed upon us for reporting, meeting certain educational requirements of our students. That doesn't change. One student with a high level of need in Otto Eldred is a significant issue in our budget, whereas, you know, a district the size of St. Mary's can absorb a little bit more, but in our area, we are the focus of the community. There isn't a whole lot around automotive that goes on without the district being in the middle of it. So
You are a school.
we are, yeah, we are, well, we are the community center for our area.
Yeah. Because St. Mary's is so loaded with industry, very fortunately. Where do you see that impact on St. Mary's? Because if you pull that away, you know, those property taxes, obviously this is going to hit you more than it would, I would think, Matt.
You're right, Jeff, and the fact is that although the businesses would not have a property tax to pay, that means the homeowners have to pay it somehow. And that means that you would have that increase in your sales tax and in the income tax to make up for that. And right now, the businesses in our area are turning to us as a school district and saying they're growing, they're expanding, they need employees. And we want to help them get those employees by providing quality programs for our students. Now, I was involved in a study about property taxes about 7 years ago. 8 school districts got together and we took a look at what we were bringing in real estate taxes, and yet what were we putting back into the economy. What we found is this: for every $1 in real estate taxes that were brought in, the schools put $2 back into the economy. And that was with local purchases, contracts, construction, and one big factor, employment. So whenever you tinker with public education funding, there is a big ripple effect on the economy with that. So I would urge people to be very, very careful of how that is brought about or what changes are made. Jeff, I'm sure that coming up too with the budget, you're going to hear more about the pension crisis. And first of all, the pension crisis is pretty ancient. It goes back to Governor Ridge. And we've had General Assembly after General Assembly after General Assembly not take action to fix it. Well, and you hear it from the public too. The educators get too much and so on and so forth. Remember this, it's not just educators. It's all state employees are part of that pension system. Now, I want you to consider this. Across Pennsylvania, there are many retired educators. The average pension paid out to an educator retiree is $25,000 a year. Some get more, some get less, but the average is $25,000 a year. After 35 years of education, working at that rate, you're not even getting $1,000 per year to retire on average. So that's a huge misnomer, I know, that's put out, is that retirement system is broken. Well, once again, politics intervened and politics broke it.
People have a lot of misconceptions in the fact that I'm fortunate because I grew up around a lot of teachers in my family. But a lot of people still think you gentlemen and the folks that work for you still work 9 o'clock till 2 o'clock and have all summers off, and that just isn't the case.
No, our days now in the wintertime start about 5:30. They may end at 5:30 in the afternoon with all the events and the weather issues. In the summertime, you know, it is a little bit nicer weather, but you're still working just as hard in the summertime.
To schools that never sleep, I tell you what, folks, you need to make sure and take a long, hard look and make sure to contact your legislatures. And if you have questions, I'm sure these gentlemen would help you in any way, shape, or form.